April 10th, 1943. The windswept cliffs of Ventnor, Isle of Wight, England. Dawn's grey light barely pierces the fog rolling in from the English Channel, carrying the salt sting of the sea and the faint, acrid tang of diesel from distant ships. In a squat, camouflaged bungalow perched on the cliff's edge, operator second-class Eliza Hargrove hunches over her desk, her fingers hovering above the brass key of a wireless receiver. The room hums with the low buzz of vacuum tubes and the crackle of static, a symphony of invisible wars fought in whispers of Morse code. Outside, the waves crash relentlessly against the rocks below, a reminder that somewhere out there, in the cold Atlantic depths, German U-boats prowl like shadows, their radio masts slicing the surface to send encrypted bursts to distant commanders. Eliza's eyes, sharp and unblinking behind her wire-rimmed spectacles, fix on the needle of the receiver as it dances erratically. She's been at this post for 6 months now, one of dozens of women in the Y service, those unheralded sentinels of the airwaves, scattered across Britain's coastlines like hidden eyes. The Y stations, they call them, a code name for the interception outposts that pluck enemy signals from the ether before they can fade into the void. No glory in it, just endless nights of tuning dials, logging frequencies, and transcribing dots and dashes into notebooks that pile up like autumn leaves. But tonight, or rather this morning, something feels different. The static thickens, then parts like a curtain, revealing a rhythmic pulse. Dit-da-dit-da-dit-da. A U-boat transmission, faint but insistent, bleeding through from the convoy lanes west of Ireland. You can almost feel the chill seeping through the bungalow's thin walls, the kind that settles into your bones no matter how many layers of wool you pile on. Eliza's breath fogs the air as she taps out the response on her notepad, her pencil scratching furiously. Bearing 240 degrees, frequency 4. 5 megacycles, she mutilates under her breath, voice steady despite the adrenaline spiking in her veins. Beside her, Corporal Tom Wilkins, the station's grizzled supervisor with a scarred cheek from Dunkirk, leans in, his pipe clenched between tobacco-stained teeth. That's a Wolfpack signal, Hargrove. Keep it locked. Don't let it slip. His voice is gravelly, laced with the urgency of a man who's seen too many merchant ships vanish from the radar. The Morse quickens, a staccato barrage now. The U-boat's commander, perhaps Captain Lieutenant Heinrich Voss, aboard U-552, coordinating with his pack. Eliza imagines him in the conning tower, salt-crusted beard, framing a face etched by weeks at sea, barking orders to his radio man as the boat pitches through 30-foot swells. The signal encodes positions, sightings, vital intelligence for the Kriegsmarine's bid to strangle Britain's supply lines. But here, in this unassuming shack, it's just noise transformed into scribbled lines. A basket filled with intercepted morsels, ready to be rushed to the mainland. As the transmission peaks, Eliza's hand flies across the page, capturing every nuance. The slight waver indicating the boat's dive to evade detection, the encoded groups that hint at Enigma-encrypted depths. The room grows tense. Another operator, young Betty from Liverpool, adjusts the directional antenna on the roof, her boots thudding against the ladder in the wind. "Signal strength up, ma'am. They're closing on SC-130. She calls down, her voice whipping through the open door. Convoy SC-130, a ragged fleet of 38 merchantmen laden with Canadian timber and American steel, snakes its way across the Atlantic under Royal Navy escort. If this Wolfpack finds them, it could be another bloodbath, like the slaughter of HX-229 last month, where 7 U-boats turned the sea red. Wilkins snatches the notepad as the signal fades, stuffing the transcribed sheets into a weighted dispatch basket, a simple wicker thing lined with oilcloth to keep the ink from smudging in transit. "Motorcycle courier now," he snaps, and outside, the roar of a Norton engine splits the dawn. The rider, a lanky ATS driver named Fiona, revs the throttle, the basket lashed to her side like a precious cargo. She guns it down the muddy track toward the ferry at Ryde, the cliffs blurring past as gulls wheel overhead. The journey's a gauntlet, blackout roads, the ever-present threat of Luftwaffe night fighters, and the clock ticking against the convoy's peril. By midday, that basket will cross the Solent, bound for the heart of the intelligence machine, Bletchley Park. Meanwhile, far to the east, in the rolling Buckinghamshire countryside, the spires of Bletchley Park pierce a manicured estate that hides a hive of secrets. It's mid-morning now, and in Hut 4, the naval section buzzes with a different rhythm. Commander Alistair Denniston, the park's steely director, with his clipped Oxford accent, paces the wooden floorboards, glancing at the influx of Y-service reports piling on the decryptors' desks. The air here smells of tea, cigarette smoke, and the ozone whiff of early computers. Those hulking bombs, whirring drums of wire and relay that chew through Enigma's labyrinthine codes. You step into the fray as if you're there, shoulder to shoulder with the codebreakers. Brilliant misfits like Alan Turing, his brow furrowed over a slide rule, or the Wrens, Women's Royal Naval Service, poring over crib sheets. One of them, Petty Officer Joan Clark, a mathematician with a no-nonsense bob haircut, receives the Ventnor basket via secure van. Her fingers, ink-stained and precise, unpack the Morse transcripts, cross-referencing them against known U-boat grids. Voss's pack, U-552, U-203, at least 5 more. She murmurs to her colleague, the air thick with the clatter of typewriters. The Enigma machine, that devilish cipher box with its rotating rotors and plugboard, has kept Allied shipping in the dark for years, but Bletchley's breakthroughs, shark key settings cracked just last winter, turn the tide. As the bomb churns, lights flickering like a mechanical heartbeat, the decrypt emerges. Coordinates pinpointing the Wolfpack's ambush point, 150 miles south of Greenland. Denniston grabs the phone, his voice urgent over the secure line to Admiralty in Whitehall. Ultra priority, redirect escorts to grid AJ-27, depth charges on standby. The intelligence flows outward like ripples from a stone, to the destroyer, HMS Starling, Captain Frederick Walker's ship slicing through the North Atlantic, to the codenamed Huff Duff direction finders on escort carriers, honing in on the U-boat's homing beacons. Back on the cliffs, Eliza Hargrove resets her receiver, the static returning to its monotonous drone. She doesn't know yet that her basket of Morse has doomed a predator of the deep, but as the sun climbs, burning off the fog, she feels it, a subtle shift in the war's unseen currents. The Y stations fill the baskets, Bletchley empties them into graves, and out there, in the vast, unforgiving ocean, the hunters become the hunted. April 12th, 1943. The heaving grey expanse of the North Atlantic, 200 miles south of Iceland. Salt spray lashes the conning tower of U-552 like needles driven by a gale-force wind that howls through the rigging and whips the black-and-white Kriegsmarine ensign into a frenzy. Inside the steel pressure hull, the air is thick with the stench of unwashed bodies, machine oil, and the faint metallic tang of fear sweat. Captain Lieutenant Heinrich Voss grips the periscope handles, his gloved hands steady despite the boat's violent roll, eyes narrowed against the dim red glow of the attack center. The U-boat dives and surfaces in erratic rhythm, evading the phantom shadows of Allied escorts that seem to multiply like ghosts in the mist. You can taste the brine on your lips as if you're crammed shoulder to shoulder with the crew in the narrow control room. The deck tilting beneath your feet, while diesel engines thrum like a beast's heartbeat. Voss, a veteran of the Biscay patrols with a jagged scar tracing his jaw from a British depth charge that nearly ended him off Liverpool last year, mutters a curse in Low German. Surfacing, blow, all ballast. His voice cuts through the clamour, and the chief engineer, Obermaschinist Karl Becker, yanks levers with calloused fists, compressed air hissing as the boat breaches the waves like a breaching whale. Water cascades off the hull in torrents, and for a brief moment the conning tower hatch swings open to the chaos above. Roiling seas, a sky bruised purple with storm clouds, and the distant silhouette of a fat merchantman limping through the swells. The Wolfpack, 8 U-boats strong, a coordinated noose tightening around convoy ONS-5, fans out in the murk. U-552 leads the van, her hydrophones pinging faint propeller echoes from the convoy's 22 ships, a motley armada of Liberty freighters stuffed with tanks, fuel, and food for the starving British Isles. Voss's radio man, a wiry Feldwebel named Otto Lang, hunches over the Enigma machine bolted to a bulkhead, its keys clacking like typewriter strikes as he encodes the latest sighting report. Grid AM-64, convoy bearing 090, speed 8 knots, escorts detached to the north. Lang relays, his fingers flying across the plugboard, rotors whirring through permutations that have baffled the Tommies for years. The message bursts out in a tight-beam Morse transmission, a lifeline to U-boat command in Lorient, France, where Admiral Dönitz pores over charts, dreaming of his tonnage war to choke the Allies. But unseen, the noose frays at the edges. Aboard the destroyer HMS Starling, Captain Frederick Walker paces the bridge, his duffel coat flapping in the wind that screams through the open wheelhouse. The sea is a monster today, waves cresting at 40 feet, slamming the 100-ton Hunt-class ship like hammer blows. Walker's face, weathered by 2 years of convoy duty, creases with grim determination. He's the U-boat killer, they whisper in the wardrooms, a tactician who reads the ocean's currents like a chess master. His eyes flick to the WT office, where Lieutenant Commander Geoffrey Benstead hunches over a Type 271 radar set, its green phosphor screen flickering with blips amid the static snow of the storm. "Y service traffic, sir. Intercepts from the Huff-Duff stations," Benstead calls, his voice raised over the gale. The direction-finding arrays, those Huff-Duff wonders with their rotating loops that triangulate radio bearings to within a mile, have been lighting up Admiralty plot rooms since dawn. Walker's decrypt team, fed scraps from Bletchley via secure teleprinter, confirms the Wolfpack's positions, U-552 at the spearhead, U-203 lurking to the southwest, their signals betraying the pack's intent to mass for a night surface attack. "Plot it! Walk attack!" the captain snaps, invoking his signature tactic, a pincer maneuver with corvettes and sloops to herd the subs like sheepdogs on wolves. Below decks on Starling, the ASDIC operator, able seaman Jack Riley, adjusts his hydrophone headset, the ping of the sonar echoing through the hull like a siren's call. The water column vibrates with secrets, thermoclines hiding U-boat shadows, the distant throb of merchant screws drawing the predators closer. Riley's screen shows a contact, a faint echo at 200 yards bearing 220. "Submarine, sir! Definite!" he shouts up the voice tube, heart pounding as the bridge crew springs to action. Gunners swarm the twin 4-inch guns forward, breeches clanging open to load high-explosive shells. While depth-charge crews on the quarterdeck wrestle the trolleys into position, the pine-scented charges glistening with seawater. Voss senses the trap closing, a prickling at the nape of his neck honed by months of cat and mouse. "Dive! Battle stations!" he bellows, and the boat plunges, claxons wailing as watertight doors slam. The crew tumbles in the red-lit chaos, Becker flooding the tanks while lookouts scramble below, their oilskins shedding rivulets onto the oily deck plates. Enigma's rotors spin futilely now. The Allies have pierced the veil, courtesy of those innocuous baskets from Ventnor and a dozen other Y stations, unpacked in Bletchley's huts, where bombing machines devour the code like ravenous beasts. Back at Bletchley Park, the afternoon sun slants through blackout curtains in Hut 8, casting long shadows over trestle tables strewn with graph paper and tea-stained mugs. Alan Turing, his shirt sleeves rolled up to reveal pipe burns on his arms, leans over a crib sheet, pencil tapping rhythmically. "Shark traffic. Naval Enigma variant," he murmurs to Joan Clark, who cross-checks the day's intercepts against the previous day's keys. The Y service baskets arrive in waves, motorcycle couriers and secure lorries ferrying the raw Morse to the park's gates, where Wren sentries in crisp uniforms wave them through under the watchful eyes of Station X's geese, those honking sentinels patrolling the perimeter. Clark's team cracks another wheel order, the bomb's relays clicking like dominoes falling. U-552's report. They're committing to the attack, she says, her voice calm amid the frenzy. The decrypts flood out, precise latitudes, longitudes, even the U-boat's fuel state, hinting at desperation. Commander Denniston, ever the orchestrator, relays the ultra-intelligence to the Citadel in Liverpool, the Western Approach's nerve center. Teletypes chatter relentlessly. Redirect ONS 5 to 55 north, 35 west. Deploy Swordfish from Biter for air cover. Out on the Atlantic, the battle ignites. Starling's screws churn the foam as she charges the contact, Walker bellowing orders from the compass platform. Fire 1, fire 2. Hedgehog mortars spit their 24 spigot bombs in a deadly rosette, the explosions blooming underwater like fiery flowers, concussing the sea. U-552 shudders violently, a near miss buckling a plate in the engine room, sparks flying as Becker fights to maintain trim. Voss, flung against the periscope stand, tastes blood from a split lip. Evasive, hard to starboard. The boat twists in the depths, propellers cavitating in a desperate bid for silence, but the escorts close in, their Azdic pings relentless as hounds on the scent. In the convoy's wake, the merchantmen press on, their Liberty ship captains, hard-bitten Americans like Captain Elias Thorne on the SS Empire Oak, clutching rails slick with spray, praying to a god who seems distant in this watery hell. Thorne's vessel, laden with 8,000 tons of aviation fuel, lists under the onslaught, but the Wolfpack hesitates, signals intercepted and plotted against them. One by one, the U-boats peel away, shadows fleeing into the abyss, their graves dug not by torpedoes, but by invisible threads of code and cunning. As twilight bleeds into the storm-lashed horizon, Walker lights his pipe on Starling's bridge, the cherry glowing like a defiant ember. The Y station's whispers have become thunder, Bletchley's baskets the shovels unearthing steel tombs on the ocean floor. The tide turns, inch by merciless inch, in the war's hidden war. April 15th, 1943. The dim-lit corridors of Bletchley Park's Block E, Buckinghamshire, England. The scent of damp wool and overbrewed tea clings to the air like a persistent fog, mingling with the sharp ozone bite from the humming relays of the latest bomb machine. It's late evening, the blackout shutters drawn tight against the velvet night. But inside, the war never sleeps. You weave through the throng of codebreakers in Hut 6, their faces illuminated by the ghostly glow of desk lamps, pencils scratching like frantic insects on graph paper. The room pulses with urgency, a hive where the Y station's baskets arrive hourly, disgorging sheaves of Morse transcripts that hold the keys to the Atlantic's underbelly. Joan Clark wipes a smudge of graphite from her cheek, her sharp eyes scanning the latest dispatch from a coastal station near Land's End. The paper is crisp, inked with the precise hand of operator Lila Thorne, a Y service veteran whose ears have caught the Kriegsmarine's whispers for over a year. Another wolf pack forming, U-5 or 15, and her sisters probing east of the Azores. Joan says to her colleague, a lanky mathematician named Peter Hilton, who adjusts his spectacles and nods, his fingers already tracing crib patterns on a chalkboard. The Enigma's naval variant, dubbed Shark, twists its rotors daily, but Bletchley's cryptanalysts have mapped its rhythms, daily wheel settings, message keys, the subtle biases in German operators' typing habits. Each basket from the Y stations, those wicker vessels trundling across blackout roads on motorcycles or in unmarked vans, feeds the beast, turning raw intercepts into actionable ultra-intelligence. Across the estate, in the manicured gardens now crisscrossed with barbed wire and anti-aircraft pits, Commander Alistair Denniston confers with his deputy, Edward Travis. Under the shadow of the mansion's Georgian facade, the air is cool, carrying the earthy scent of turned soil from the Victory Gardens, but their conversation crackles with tension. The Y service is pulling double shifts, intercepts up 30% since March, Travis reports, his voice low, glancing at the patrolling geese that honk softly in the gloom. Denniston's jaw tightens. He's a submariner at heart, haunted by the ghosts of lost convoys. And Bletchley, we're drowning in signals, but the bombs are cracking them faster. That last batch from Ventnor doomed Voss's pack, U-552, limped back to Brest with leaks. You feel the weight of it as you imagine slipping into the teleprinter room, where machines clatter like automated looms, spitting out decrypts on rolls of greasy paper. One sheet unspools now, a U-boat commander's report from U-515, Captain Lieutenant Kurt von Rosenstiel, detailing a feint toward convoy HX-234, a behemoth of 50 merchant ships churning from Halifax with munitions and grain. The signal, snatched mid-Atlantic by a Huff-Duff array on the Cornish coast, reveals coordinates, 42 north, 45 west, a rendezvous point for 3 more boats. Jones' team pounces, the bomber's drums whirring furiously, lights flashing in cascades as it tests permutations, millions in seconds, narrowing to the Holy Grail, the day's key settings. Got it. Plugboard BF, rotor order 3VY, she announces, and the room erupts in quiet triumph, typewriters hammering out the plain text. The intelligence cascades outward, a digital bloodstream from Bletchley to the war machine. Secure lines hum to the Admiralty's operations room in Whitehall, where brass-hatted officers plot on vast chart tables under the vaulted ceilings of the Citadel. Captain Johnny Walker, Frederick now, promoted for his Atlantic exploits, receives the flash traffic aboard HMS Starling, escorting a fresh convoy through the Denmark Strait. The destroyer's wireless shack reeks of solder and sweat, sparks flying from the valve sets as the yeoman decodes the ultra-brief. Von Rosenstiel's pack, 5 confirmed, sir. Ambush grid plotted. Walker's eyes gleam. He's turned hunter again, his banquet tactic ready. Layered screens of corvettes, sloops, and V&A ships to flush the subs into the open. Far across the ocean, April 16th, 1943. The sun-baked docks of Lorient occupied France. The U-boat pens echo with the clang of welders' torches and the shouts of dockyard workers, a fortress of reinforced concrete shielding the Kriegsmarine's wolves from RAF bombers. Captain Lieutenant Kurt von Rosenstiel strides the quayside, his iron cross glinting on his tunic, barking orders to refit crews swarming U-515's sleek hull. The Type 9 seaboat, fresh from a refit with enhanced snorkels and acoustic torpedoes, gleams under arc lights, her conning tower emblazoned with kill tallies, 16 ships, 80,000 tons sunk. Von Rosenstiel's face is gaunt, shadowed by the strain of Dunitz's tonnage imperative. Every patrol a gamble against the Allies' closing net. You can hear the lap of the harbour waters against the pen's walls, smell the tar and fish rot as von Rosenstiel climbs aboard, the gangway creaking under his boots. Inside, the boat stirs to life. Diesel generators coughing awake, the radio man testing the Enigma's circuits with a ritual clack of keys. To sea at dusk, course 270. Rendezvous with U-68 at grid CG, he commands, his voice echoing in the tight confines. The crew, a mix of hardened Obersteuermänner and green Fenrischer, snap to attention, their faces lit by the blue glow of gauges. Oberfunkmat Hans Keller, the boat's wireless wizard, encodes the departure signal, fingers dancing over the rotor settings, a burst of Morse that arcs skyward, destined for the ether, but snared by Y-station antennas hundreds of miles away. As U-515 slips the pens under cover of night, her diesels rumbling low, the wolf pack forms in the swelling Atlantic. Von Rosenstiel perches in the attack center, charts spread on the chart table, plotting the intercept of HX-234. The convoy's escorts, veterans like the frigate HMS Spey and the sloop HMS Pelican, steam in vigilant zigzags, their radars sweeping the horizon. But Bletchley's foresight arms them. Walker's Starling detaches from her charges, racing south on an intercept course, her screws foaming the waves under a canopy of stars. April 17, 1943. Midnight swells crash over the bridge of HMS Starling, the North Atlantic a cauldron of phosphorescent foam and howling wind. Captain Walker grips the voice tube, salt crusting his beard as ASDIC pings reverberate through the hull. Contact bearing 310, range 300 yards, submerged. The operator's voice crackles with excitement. The Wolfpack has struck first. U-68 torpedoes a tanker in HX-234's van, flames blooming like a false dawn. But the escorts counter, searchlights stabbing the darkness. Von Rosenstiel, 200 feet down in U-515, feels the deck shudder as a depth charge pattern erupts overhead, the concussions rattling rivets and drawing blood from a helmsman's nose. Harder dive, evasive turns. Von Rosenstiel roars, the boat groaning as ballast floods. Keller frantically taps a distress signal on the Enigma, but it's too late. Huff-Duff stations on Iceland's coast triangulate the burst, feeding bearings back to Bletchley in real time. Jones' decrypt confirms the position and orders fly. Concentrate on U-51 primary threat. Starling closes, her Hedgehog mortars barking a salvo that brackets the sub's dive. Explosions buffet U-515 like hammer blows, flooding the forward torpedo room, water gushing through a cracked seam. Von Rosenstiel claws at the periscope, cursing the fates as the escort's screws thunder above, a deadly ballet in the depths. In Bletchley, dawn breaks with the clatter of victory teleprints. U-515 surfaced under pressure, her crew abandoning ship as Pelican's 4-inch guns thunder. Von Rosenstiel goes down with her. The boat's hull crumpling under depth charges, a steel grave 300 fathoms deep. The baskets from the Y stations, once humble carriers of dots and dashes, have woven another shroud. Walker, scanning the debris-strewn sea from Starling's bridge, exhales a plume of pipe smoke into the wind. The war's invisible front advances, one decrypted signal at a time, turning predators to prey in the endless blue. May 5, 1943. The rugged coastline of Scarborough, North Yorkshire, England. A relentless drizzle sheets the North Sea cliffs, turning the Y Station's concrete bunker into a dripping fortress where the wind whistles through cracks like distant artillery. Inside, the air hangs heavy with the hum of receivers and the faint, musty scent of damp paper. As Operator First Class Margaret Maggie Riley adjusts her headphones, the leather cups pressing against her ears like a vice. Her desk is a battlefield of scribbled logs, frequency charts, and half-empty mugs of tea gone cold, the lamplight casting harsh shadows on her freckled face. Maggie's been pulling 16-hour shifts since the spring thaw, her fingers calloused from the Morse key, eyes burning from the glow of the cathode ray direction finder. You lean in close, feeling the chilled draft snake through the bunker door, carrying the briny slap of waves 200 feet below. The static crackles like frying fat, then sharpens into a staccato rhythm. Dit-dit-da, a U-boat's weather report bleeding from the Norwegian Sea. Scarborough's antennas, those towering Yagi arrays disguised as farm windmills, snag the signal from 500 miles out, triangulating it with sister stations at Crinan and Wick. Bearing 015, strength 3, U-boat auxiliary cipher, Maggie whispers to herself, her pencil flying across the notepad in neat looping shorthand. She's no stranger to the game. Last month's intercepts helped bag U-515. And the wireless room still buzzes with clippings from the classified Admiralty Bulletin, praising the Y Service's silent sentinels. Sergeant Harold Finch, The station chief, with a limp from a V-1 buzz bomb in 41, peers over her shoulder, his breath fogging the dial. That's Donner weather code. Donitz's pups reporting in for the next push. His voice is a low rumble, edged with the coal dust accent of Durham mines. The signal modulates, carrying encoded bursts from U-954, a Type 7 IC boat under Korvettenkapitan Karl-Heinz Marbach, probing for gaps in the mid-ocean meeting point where convoys like ON 184 converge. Maggie captures it all. Barometric pressures hinting at storm fronts, ice reports from the Labrador Current, positions that sketch the Wolfpack staging grounds east of Newfoundland. The Morse fades into white noise, and Maggie seals the transcripts in the dispatch basket. A sturdy osier weave reinforced with canvas, its lid snapping shut like a trap. "Courier's due in 10, Finch says, glancing at the clock's radium hands. Outside, the rain hammers the gravel path as Private Elsie Cartwright, a tough WAF driver with oil-streaked overalls, kicks her BSA motorcycle to life. The engine snarls against the downpour, the basket strapped tight behind the saddle, and she roars off toward the railhead at York, headlights cutting blacked-out lanes where hedgerows loom like silent watchers. The run's perilous, flooded roads, the odd German reconnaissance plane, and the gnawing fear that one slip means a basket of secrets lost to the mud. By noon, the sodden parcel arrives at Bletchley Park, trundling through the estate's wrought-iron gates where MI5 checks wave it past. In Hut 4, the naval cryptographers unpack it amid the clack of Hollerith sorters and the sizzle of soldering irons. Lieutenant Commander Ian Fleming, yes, that Fleming, on loan from Naval Intelligence with his dapper suits and wry smile, sorts the sheets, his pipe smoke curling toward the rafters. "Scarborough's gold again. Donner keys for the weather net," he notes to Sub-Lieutenant Patricia Paddy Main, a sharp-witted wren whose decryption skills rival Turing's. The hut smells of ink and adrenaline, floorboards creaking under the weight of filing cabinets stuffed with cribs and rotor logs. You sense the frenzy, as if you're elbow-deep in the stacks, the bomb's fans whirring like a distant propeller. Paddy feeds the transcripts into the machine, its 36 drums spinning through 1023 possibilities, lights winking in frantic Morse of their own. The Enigma's shark settings shift like quicksand, daily Bigram tables, reflector tweaks, but Bletchley's boffins have pierced deeper, exploiting cribs from predictable German phrases like Heil Hitler or routine reports. Wheel order V2R, ring settings 140925, Paddy calls as the decrypt spits out U-954's position at 52 north, 42 west, linking with U-707 and 4 others for Operation Russelsprung, Donitz's bold thrust to sever the convoy routes. The plain text ignites the room. Fleming grabs the secure blower to Deniston's office, where the commander hunches over a situation map, pinned with colored pins. Y service confirms Wolfpack assembly. 7 boats targeting ON 184. Redirect via grid BH. Deniston's voice, clipped and precise, echoes down the line to the convoy control in Liverpool, where plotters scramble under the Citadel's domed ceiling, grease pencils etching new courses on illuminated charts. The intelligence ripples out. To escort Group Commander Peter Gretton aboard HMS Vidette, a Flower-class corvette bucking through the Labrador swells. To RAF Coastal Command, scrambling Liberator bombers from Iceland with Lee light search beams. Across the Atlantic, May 7th, 1943, the fog-shrouded decks of convoy on 184, 400 miles east of St. John's. Captain Elias Thorne, veteran of the Empire Oak, now commanding the freighter SS Fort Ashford, squints through binoculars from the bridge wing, the air thick with diesel exhaust and the metallic tang of fear. His ship, a 7, Udru 0-tonner crammed with bauxite ore for smelters, plods at 7 knots amid 41 sisters, escorts weaving a protective web, sloops like HMS Luz and the brand-new destroyer HMS Offa, her pennant number I-95 fluttering in the mist. You taste the salt spray on your tongue, hear the rhythmic thud of the Liberty ship's engines as alarms blare. ASDIC contact. U-707, commanded by Oberleutnant José Günther Gretschel, slips through a screen gap, her torpedoes streaking unseen. A thunderous crack splits the fog. The tanker SS British Workman erupts in a fireball, her 12 Aluzern tons of fuel oil igniting like a Viking pyre, crewmen leaping into the oil-slicked sea. Gretton on vidette spins the wheel, full ahead both, Starshell barrage. 4. 7-inch guns roar, illuminating the murk where U-707's snortmast betrays her position, a periscope fleeting like a shark's fin. From Bletchley's feeds, Gretton knows the pack's play. Russelsprung's hammer blow, 8 U-boats converging like wolves on a herd. But Ultra arms him, Huff-Duff bearings from Goose Bay pinpoint U-954's flank. Depth charges plunge, snowflake patterns blooming underwater, the sea heaving as if in agony. Marbach in U-954's citadel feels the hammer strikes, bulkheads groaning, a gauge shattering in the diesel room. "Flood main ballast, dive to 250 meters, he shouts, his voice hoarse over the klaxons. Radioman Fritz Lehmann taps a frantic Enigma burst for help, but Scarborough's antennas snag it mid-air, the basket already en route south. Back at Bletchley, night falls with the bomber's triumph. Another key cracked, decrypts revealing fuel shortages plaguing the pack, Dönitz's wolves starving on extended patrols. Fleming drafts the flash. Disperse on 184 north, engage U-954 priority. Gretton's group tightens the noose, vidette screws, churning foam as she hunts. May 8th dawns bloody. U-707 surfaces under fire, her decks awash. Gretschel ordering abandon ship as Offa's guns rake the hull. She rolls over, stern high, before a magazine cook-off sends her to the bottom, 47 souls with her. Marbach evades longer, U-954 twisting through thermoclines, but the escort's lee lights from a Wellington bomber pin her at dusk. Hedgehogs chatter, explosions crumpling her pressure hull. She broaches, mortally wounded, crew spilling into rafts amid the gunfire. Thorne on Fort Ashford watches the kill from afar, the convoy pressing on, losses held to 3 ships. The Y Station's whispers, ferried in humble baskets, have carved another grave, the Atlantic's floor a cemetery of twisted steel. In Scarborough's bunker, Maggie resets her dials as the rain eases, the static a lullaby now. She doesn't hear the victory bells, but feels the shift, a war won in shadows, one intercept at a time. Bletchley's machines grind on, turning Morse to requiems for the Reich's undersea fleet. May 20th, 1943. The mist-shrouded moors of Chicksands, Bedfordshire, England. A fine, persistent rain mists the Y Station's camouflaged masts, turning the heathland into a sodden labyrinth where rabbits dart through gorse thickets heavy with dew. Inside the low-slung Nissen hut, the air thrums with the electric whine of amplifiers and the sharp scent of hot solder from jury-rigged consoles. Operator leading Wren Sarah Jenkins, her uniform sleeves rolled to the elbows, revealing tattooed anchors from her Portsmouth days, hunches over the intercept console, fingers tracing the glowing trace of a cathode ray oscilloscope. The room's walls, papered with frequency allocation charts, flutter slightly in the draft from a ventilation fan that battles the build-up of stale cigarette smoke and machine oil. You press against the damp chill, seeping through the corrugated iron, hearing the patter of rain on the roof like muffled Morse as Sarah's headphones clamp down, isolating her in a world of ethereal signals. She's been at Chicksands for 8 months, part of the expanded Y service net that now stretches from the Shetlands to the Scillies, a chain of ears attuned to the Kriegsmarine's fading roars. The dials spin under her touch, locking onto a high-frequency burst. Dudit-a-dit, A U-boat's tactical ping from the mid-Atlantic ridge, faint but laced with the urgency of a cornered beast. DF fix at 052 degrees, signal from grid BE, type 8IC likely. She logs in her notebook, the pencil lead snapping under pressure as adrenaline sharpens her focus. Beside her, Petty Officer Reginald Reg Harlan, the hut's technical lead, with grease-blackened nails and a perpetual squint from tube burnout, adjusts the Adcock antenna array's phase shifter. That's Barbarossa weather overlay. Dönitz squeezing the last from his boats before the noose tightens. His voice carries the clipped rhythm of a man who's tuned out the war's horrors by focusing on the hardware. The Bellini-Tosi goniometers that triangulate bearings to within 5 miles, feeding data to the centralized plot at Bowley Firth. The signal swells. A radioman aboard U-468, Oberleutnant zur See Herbert Mahn, her commander, encoding a rendezvous call to stragglers in the pack, their Enigma rotors churning out positions for a desperate lunge at convoy HX-239. Sarah's heart quickens as the Morse accelerates, dots and dashes painting a picture of desperation. Low fuel states, damaged hydroplanes from prior brushes, coordinates clustering around 48 north, 40 west. She imagines Mahn in U-468's dripping control room, the boat wallowing in 20-foot seas, his face gaunt under the red battle lantern as he plots against the escort's closing vice. The transcript fills pages, each group a breadcrumb leading to doom, sealed now in the dispatch basket, a reinforced willow frame with leather straps, its contents waterproofed against the moor's treacherous bogs. "Runner-up! Priority 1!" Reg barks, and outside the door bangs open to admit Lance Corporal Miriam Levy, a wiry Jewish refugee from Vienna, now in the ATS, her Macintosh dripping as she secures the basket to her Triumph motorcycle. The engine coughs to life in the downpour, tires spitting mud as she accelerates down the rutted track toward the A1, blackout baffles dimming her headlamp to a ghostly slit. The ride's a gauntlet. Fog-bound lanes, the rumble of a patrolling bowfighter overhead, and the basket's weight, a constant reminder of the lives hinging on its swift delivery to Bletchley, 50 miles south. By early afternoon, the sodden cargo arrives at the park's perimeter, where sentries in steel helmets wave the van through under the eaves of the mansion, its windows shrouded like blind eyes. In Hut 8, the air crackles with the heat of overworked Bombays, their electromechanical innards groaning like labouring engines amid the scent of varnish and victory gin sneaked from the officers' mess. Alan Turing, dishevelled in a cardigan riddled with holes, pores over a logbook, his pipe unlit between his teeth as he confers with Max Newman, the mathematician overseeing the next-generation Turing bomb prototypes. "Chicksands intercept, shark traffic spiking," Turing mutters, his voice a soft Midlands drawl cutting through the relay clicks. Joan Clark, sleeves pinned with drafting clips, unpacks the basket on a trestle table scarred by years of frantic work. Her team of wrens sorting the sheets by frequency, the hut buzzes, typewriters clacking cribs, slide rules whispering calculations, the faint hum of the teleprinter linking to outstations. Mahn's U-468, leading a remnant pack. 6 boats, sir, low on torpedoes, but closing on HX-239. Clark reports to Commander Denniston, who's just entered with a sheaf of Admiralty queries. The Enigma's naval wheel orders shift like sand, but the Y-Service's volume overwhelms, baskets piling like cordwood, each decrypt a dagger. The bomb engages, drums accelerating to 5 zoos and revolutions per minute, testing plugboard permutations against known German idioms, weather phrases, fuel queries, until the jackpot, Reflector B, rotors I3V, rings 031721. The plain text unrolls, U-468's grid. Fuel at 30%, intent to shadow the convoy from astern. Denniston's eyes narrow. Black May looms. Dönitz's U-boats bleeding ships and crews at unsustainable rates. Flash to western approaches, reroute HX-239 to 51 North, Vector Walker's group. The orders cascade, secure lines to the Citadel, where plotters under dim blue lights redraw courses on the massive Atlantic chart, pins marking the Wolfpack's unraveling, to HMS Starling, now under Commander Geoffrey Walker, Frederick's brother, carrying the family torch, pounding through the swells off Newfoundland, her Type 271 radar piercing the murk. May 22, 1943, the roiling belly of the Atlantic 300 miles west of the Azores. U-468 slices submerged through a layer of warm Gulf Stream water, her electric motors humming softly to evade the pings overhead. Captain Lieutenant Herbert Mahn grips the UZO attack site in the conning tower, sweat beading on his brow despite the chill. As hydrophone operator, Lieutenant Karl Weiss reports faint screw noises. The convoy's 45 merchantmen, a lifeline of wheat and warplanes from New York. The pack, U-468, U-504, four shadows, tightens, but Mahn senses the noose. Signals go unanswered, Enigma bursts, met with silence from Lorient. You feel the pressure building in the boat's steel lungs, the creak of struts under 200 meters, the acrid bite of chlorine from leaking batteries as Mahn orders a cautious periscope sweep. Escorts at 090, destroyer class, Azdic active. Weiss's voice trembles. The Allies' net has thickened, centimetric radar on escorts like the sloop HMS Fleetwood, Lee light Catalinas from Gibraltar prowling the flanks. Mahn's radio man encodes a sighting, fingers fumbling the Enigma's keys, the burst arcing upward only to be snared by Chicksands' arrays, already racing south in a basket. Aboard Starling, Geoffrey Walker, tall, pipe clenched like his brother's, paces the bridge, spray sheeting the windscreen as the gale howls at Force 8. Y service bearings confirm U-468 at 500 yards, submerged. The Azdic shack relays the plot. Depth racks, armed with Mark 7 charges set for 150-foot patterns. Ripple fire, starboard array. Gunners haul the K-guns, the ship shuddering as projectiles arc into the sea, detonating in a thunderous embrace that rocks U-468 like an earthquake. Mahn's boat lurches, lights flickering as a bulkhead buckles in the aft torpedo flat, water jetting through welds. Dive deeper. Emergency blow. Mahn bellows, the crew scrambling in the red gloom, bilge pumps whining futilely. Explosions chase them, concussing the hull, drawing blood from eardrums. Weiss taps a mayday, but Bletchley's bomb has preempted it, decrypts arming the escorts. Fleetwood closes from the port quarter, her squid mortars, those forward-throwing ahead-throwers, hurling 30-pound charges in a deadly parabola. U-468 surfaces in agony, waves crashing over the deck as Mahn orders abandon ship. The conning tower hatch grinding open to gunfire and searchlights. May 23rd dawns with salvage. U-468's wreckage litters the swells. 52 survivors plucked from rafts by convoy rescue ship HMS Angelica, their Enigma machine a trophy for interrogation. The pack scatters, HX-239 steaming unscathed, losses nil. In Lorient's pens, Dönitz stares at the teleprinter's grim toll. 41 boats lost in May alone, the tonnage war crumbling. At Bletchley, Turing pauses amid the whir, a rare smile cracking his face as another basket empties its secrets. Chicksands' whispers have filled another grave, the Y Station's baskets, the unsung hearse in the Battle of the Atlantic's turning tide. June 1st, 1943. The warren of underground tunnels beneath Bletchley Park, Buckinghamshire, England. The air down here is cool and clammy, laced with the earthy tang of freshly dug soil and the metallic hum of ventilation fans straining against the summer heat above. Dim bulbs strung along the brick vaults cast flickering shadows on the faces of the code breakers crammed into the new extension. Block D, A hasty burrow where the overflow from the hut spills like secrets too hot to contain. You squeeze through the narrow passage, shoulder-brushing damp walls, the distant clatter of typewriters echoing like subterranean Morse as the Y-Service's latest baskets pile up on sorting tables, their wicker frayed from frantic rides across rain-swept moors. Joan Clark navigates the crush, her sensible shoes scuffing the concrete floor, arms laden with transcripts from a dozen stations, Chicksands, Scarborough, Ventnor, even the remote outposts on the Hebrides. Her team, wrens with ink-smudged fingers and mathematicians nursing thermos flasks of weak tea, unpacks the hall under the glare of shaded lamps. The scent of wet paper mingles with the ozone snap from overtaxed relays as another bomb whirs to life in the corner, its chassis vibrating like a caged beast. Black May's tally, 41 U-boats confirmed down, Clark murmurs to Peter Hilton, who sketches rotor paths on a blackboard smeared with eraser dust. The intercepts scream desperation. Dönitz's wolves, fuel-starved and harried, their enigma bursts a frantic chorus snatched from the ether, now fodder for the decryptor's mill. Upstairs, in the mansion's wood-panelled dining hall, repurposed as a conference room, Commander Alistair Denniston pores over a leather-bound ledger, his fountain pen scratching summaries under the watchful portraits of long-dead lords. The room smells of polished oak and pipe tobacco, sunlight filtering through cracked blinds to illuminate maps pinned with red flags, sinking sites dotting the Atlantic like a macabre constellation. Edward Travis, his deputy, with the perpetual furrow of a chess player outmaneuvered, slides a fresh report across the table. Y-stations hit record volume, over 500 intercepts last month alone, baskets crossing the countryside like clockwork, turning the tide. Denniston's eyes, sharp behind steel frames, trace the lines. U-468's grave off the Azores, U-954's twisted hulk east of Newfoundland, the packs shattered before they could close the noose on vital convoys. You feel the pulse of it, the invisible web tightening as a motorcycle courier's engine fades into the distance outside. Another basket delivered from the cliffs of Dover. In Hut 11, the traffic analysis section buzzes with low voices. Experts like F.H. Hinsley dissecting patterns in the Morse, noting the Germans' shift to shorter bursts, the telltale hesitations in operators' fists betraying low morale. A young analyst, Sub-Lieutenant Ruth Bourne, cross-references a Land's End intercept against Admiralty logs, her voice rising in quiet excitement. Utai 21's signal, Captain Lieutenant Hans Troyer, coordinating a last gasp at SC-130's remnants, but we've got the key. Bombers already chewing it. The machine upstairs obliges, relays chattering as it cracks the Shark variant. Positions, intense, even Dönitz's override orders from Lorient, all laid bare in plain English scrolling from the teleprinter. The intelligence surges outward. A torrent down secure cables to the Admiralty's ops room, where the air reeks of sweat and blueprint ink under the cavernous dome. Captain Johnny Walker, Frederick's legacy alive in his tactics, receives the flash aboard HMS Starling, now a scarred veteran slicing through the Bay of Biscay's chop. The destroyer's bridge vibrates under his boots, spray stinging his face as he snaps orders to the plotters. We service pins Troja's pack, 5 boats, sir, vectoring west from Brest. Walker's pipe glows defiant against the horizon. His group, corvettes HMS Wren and HMS Kite flanking, deploying in the Buttercup screen, layered patrols to flush the subs into Lee light patrols from Coastal Command. Far to the west, June 3rd, 1943. The iron-grey swells of the western approaches, 500 miles off Ireland. U-231 prowls submerged. Her electric motors a muffled whine in the depths, the crew's breaths shallow in the fetid air, thick with diesel fumes and unwashed wool. Captain Lieutenant Hans Troyer hunches over the chart table in the control room. Dividers, tracing a hopeful intercept on convoy BX-137, a string of 20 oilers and tramps heavy with Mexican crude for the RAF. The boat's hydrophones thrum with distant echoes. Escort screws, a merchant's throb drawing them like moths. Troja's face, lined from 18 patrols, tightens as his radio man, Matrosenobergerfreiter Erich Vogel, encodes a status ping on the Enigma. Rotors whirring through the daily settings, plugboard wired for obscurity, the burst firing skyward in a millisecond. But Dover's Y-station antennas, perched on chalk cliffs where gulls wheel in the salt wind, latch onto it instantly. Operator Eliza Hargrove, transferred from Ventnor, her hands steadier now, logs the bearing, the basket already filling in the lamplit shack. By dusk, it reaches Bletchley, Clark's team decrypting the plea, low batteries, torpedo count at 4, rendezvous with U-658. The response is swift, ultra reroutes BX-137 north. Walker's Starling detaching to intercept. Her ASDIC operators' ears pricked for the telltale cavitation. Troja senses the shift, a chill beyond the boat's chill. Periscope depth, sweep east. The scope breaches, lenses fogging in the spray, revealing a horizon empty but for the low silhouette of a corvette. Alarms wail as pings batter the hull, centimetric radar, undetectable until too late. Dive! Battle stations! Troja roars, the boat plunging, ballast tanks flooding with a guttural rush. Depth charges follow, Starling's K-guns hurling patterns that erupt in geysers. The concussions slamming U-221 like divine fists. Bulkheads groan, a propeller shaft seizing in sparks and screams, Vogel's Enigma console shorting in a shower of blue fire. The pack fractures, U-658 surfaces prematurely under Wren's guns, her deck swept by 4-inch shells that shred the conning tower, Troja's boat broaching beside her in a vortex of oil and debris. Walker watches from Starling's wet bridge. The sea churning wreckage as survivors bob in rafts, their iron crosses glinting like false promises. Another for the ledger, he mutters, the pipe's ember fading in the wind. BX-137 slips away intact, its tankers' bellies full, fueling the Allied advance. Back at Lorient, June 5, 1943. The U-boat bunkers' dim vaults echo with hammers and curses. Admiral Karl Dönitz pacing the concrete quay, his face a mask of fury under the arc lights. Teletypes spit grim dispatches. 41 boats lost in May, another dozen teetering, the tonnage war in ruins, Allied shipping surging past pre-war peaks. The Tommies have eyes everywhere, he snarls to his staff, charts showing the noose, air cover from carriers, escorts massed in hunter-killer groups. Signals pierced like glass. The Enigma, once invincible, now a traitor, its secrets spilled by those damned baskets from the Y-stations, unpacked in Bletchley's hidden heart. In the park's twilight gardens, Denniston folds the final report, the geese honking a ragged fanfare. Turing, pausing by a bomb's cooling fans, exhales smoke from a rare cigarette. The graves multiply, our baskets the sexton's tool. Clark seals the last intercept, the war's shadow lifting inch by inch. From coastal shacks to ocean abysses, the whispers have become a requiem, the Atlantic's wolves buried in steel and silence, the tide inexorably turned.